What's up, beautiful souls? Shout out to the sponsors for this podcast. And I want to shout out Practical Peptides. So we're excited to bring doctor prescribed, pure pharmaceutical grade compound peptides delivered straight to your door for human consumption with easy to use instruction, educational materials, and a free consult. So the process is, if you're interested in peptides such as semaglutide, which is our #1 seller, which is literally helping people lose weight, decrease blood sugar levels, and literally increase self-esteem. It's a #1 bestseller. Literally all you have to do is go to practicalpeptides.com and you can select the product. You'll have a 15-minute educational with amazing Danielle, who's going to give you all of the education, give you all of the information you need. The compounding pharmacy will literally have it shipped to your door, ready to go with everything you need to use it within, 2 to 3 days. And so that's one of our best sellers. People are using NAD for energy. And that's kind of showing so much promise in brain health and decreasing inflammation with addiction. So, and then also my favorite is Focus Blend. It's a nasal spray, which helps give you kind of clarity. So check out practicalpeptides.com, use code Dr. Lee for 10% off. And second sponsor is transcendencementalhealth.com. And we're super excited. We're having monthly retreats. And if you haven't heard about the Heart Protocol, really excited to share that with you. It's the protocol that I've been facilitating for the last 4 years. And for me, it's the safest, most direct, loving, powerful connection to my higher self. And that's priceless. And for about 3, 4, 5 hours, you connect with your higher self. You have an eye mask on, you listen to music. And I mean, the things that are happening, some people call miracles in Western science, but we call it science. And it's amazing who your soul is. So badass, so beautiful, so powerful. And if you want to connect to that part of you, receive clarity, for your mission, a DNA upgrade. Sometimes we're seeing healings, things like that. In the middle of a psychedelic revolution, I feel like it's one of the safest, most powerful, most consistent ways. Bypasses the darkness, the crunchy, connects you directly to your higher self. So if that's something that interests you, go to transcendencementalhealth.com, click begin your journey, and we'd love to see you at an upcoming retreat. So shout out to our sponsors. All right, here we go, on to the episode. What's up, beautiful souls? It's Dr. Lee here. Excited to be with you for another episode of the Spiritual Psychiatrist Podcast. And today, we're going to delve into a topic that is semi-controversial for a lot of people, but I want to really give my perspective, and I'm excited to share my perspective about Tantra and learning how to harness the most powerful creative force on the planet to create whatever it is you want to create a business, to create an amazing sacred relationship, to create a new earth, but more importantly, to create the best version of yourself, because that is what Tantra is all about. But before we begin, would love to set the frequency by the love of original eternal source consciousness field. We have come, we have come, we have come. So I set a barrier now on the physical, emotional, mental, spiritual plane around this podcast, around every ear, around every heart that is listening, the frequency of love. We welcome in those eternal beloved counsels and beings of unconditional love. We ask all other beings to leave now. By the truth of original eternal source consciousness field we stand. So I pray that the truth would be known and that you would anoint my lips to speak the truth. For the truth will set us free, and we are free indeed. And all the soul wants is to be free. And that is the art of Tantra. It is the art of liberation. So as we delve into this topic, may the frequency of truth liberate our souls and liberate our physical beings to true freedom. We are free, we are free, we are free. By the power of original eternal source consciousness field we fly. So I welcome in the frequency of power for each and every one of us to step into our power, unapologetically, unconditioned, unprogrammed, a unique oscillatory, vibratory reflection of Almighty Living Creator Source. For such an important time in Mother Earth's history, she's crying out. Every rose has a thorn. And what an important point this is, what a privilege it is to be alive right now. And it's calling out right now for the true sons and daughters of the Most High Living Creator Source to step into our power, unapologetically ourselves. So we step into our power, our unique frequency at this moment. By the way of original eternal source go I, by the grace of original eternal source, consciousness field, I now sanctify and renew this podcast episode for the highest good of each and every single person who is listening today. We give gratitude in advance. Thy kingdom, queendom is coming now. Thy will is now being done in this podcast on earth as it is in the highest heavens. Taisha into Doe, Taisha into Doe, Taisha into Doe, spoken as it is stated now, and so it is done. Rasha Ira Christ Star. We're on this podcast now. So appreciate you allowing me to set the frequency. And today we're going to delve into this topic. This podcast is going to be called Learning How to Harness the Most Powerful Creative Force on the Planet. And so, a lot of people may have different perspectives of what is Tantra. A lot of people in today's society, when they hear that word, they associate the word Tantra with sex automatically. But actually, in its original form, Tantra in Sanskrit, it means to loom or weaving, a weaving of energy, a continuous process. You're either evolving or you're not. So it's a continuous process or weaving or the carrying out of a ceremony. And eventually you start realizing that when you go into these sacred ceremonies, whether it's a tea ceremony, whether it's an ayahuasca ceremony, right? You start realizing through the integration process that actually all my life is a ceremony, right? And so Tantra in its original Sanskrit meaning means to weave energy together in a continuous process or carrying out of something. And so it all began with Tantra. Everything is Tantra, a weaving of energy. And it all began when this original source energy was existing. And God, if you want to call it, and God is the energetic infrastructure that runs through all things and all people. Let me repeat that. God is the energetic infrastructure that runs through all things and all people. God is the energetic infrastructure. So God was existing in his primal form. It had a question first. And it asked itself, who am I? And through this question, it had a desire, curiosity, a desire. Who am I? To experience itself in many different forms, to increase the knowledge of the one, of itself through the interaction. So the great, if you want to call it splitting, the original trauma where source, to answer this question, who am I, split itself into many, many, many different energetic forms, and boom, all these universes and galaxies and Mother Earth was born through this original intention and desire. And God said, let there be light. And sound literally clumped together, right? Sound, before pre-sound, there was, if you want to call it, a source particle, according to quantum morphogenetic physics, way smaller than what scientists are calling God particle. And when these source particles clump together, it becomes a scallion, which is a blueprint for crystals, and then the crystalline nature, and then sound becomes more dense and more dense as it, continues to evolve this source energy, and then the crystals clump together, right, forming the crystalline body in the morphogenetic field for which matter then condenses on. And so God had this desire, and it all began with Tantra, and boom, here we are, experiencing the original intention of source, God making love with God. It's God making love with God, because sex, sacred energy exchange, you're going to continue to learn, and I started continuously learning, that everything is sacred. And it's kind of a joke, but eventually, until you realize that even shit, even crap, even the slums, even everything is sacred because it contains source energy, and sex is sacred energy exchange. And Tantra in its original form was exactly this. The original energy from which all energies are woven in together. So right now, Tantra in its true form is energy exchange, the weaving of energy, a continuous evolution and process of God making love with God, sacred energy exchange, fulfilling the original intention of Source to experience itself in many different forms, which is you, which is me. And it takes on the appearance of male, female, to understand itself better. And so, Tantra is the original creative force and energy which expresses through all of creation. Sacred energy exchange, God making love with God. But if you look at what Tantra has kind of become currently, or the perception of Tantra in general public, people associate it with just sex or Kama Sutra, but it's not that. In fact, the same way we came down, getting more dense, crystalline nature, into morphogenetic field, into atoms, into the God particle, into proteins, into a human body, right? And then going deeper into the human body, DNA strands. It's the DNA which projects the hologram. The same way we came down, descend, is the same way we go up, ascension. So Tantra in its truest form is actually, through sacred energy exchange and the weaving of energies, the processes of how we actually return to source, embody our higher self, obtain enlightenment, embody and activate our upper DNA strand, ascension, through interaction with each other, through making love with God vertically. We start embodying our upper stranded DNA. The 4th, 5th, and 6th stranded DNA is the soul. The 7th, 8th, 9th stranded DNA is the oversoul. The 10th, 11th, 12th stranded DNA. So Tantra is important because it's the energetic alchemy of how we're also returning to source, how we came from source, but also how we're going to return to source. And so if you look at it, in Greece, there's 3 different words for love. So there's agape love, which is like God's love, unconditional love, where you've literally become one with everything, one with all, attached to nothing, literally existing in at one with everything at all times. And the closest thing on this planet is like a mother's unconditional love for her son or her child. But there's also phileo love, where Philadelphia comes from philos, or brotherly love. But there's also another form of love, which is eros, erotic love. And that's the creative, powerful sexual force from which all of creation comes from, the powerful creative force from which a baby is born, and an extension of eros. Eros is everything. It's the creative force all around us. And Mark Gaffney wrote a book, and I've listened to part of it, and it's called A Return to Eros, which is, I really recommend this book. And he continuously entrains that Eros is the creative force that is flowing through everything and everyone at all times. And that simply sex is an extension of Eros. And here's the thing, it's the most powerful creative force on the planet. So you can create, if you know how to harness it, to move with it, and to alchemize it. It's a very powerful creative force that can help us, number one, remember who we are, to embody our higher self, to obtain enlightenment, to strengthen our auric field. You can create a baby with it. You can create a company with it. You can create a new earth with it. And energy is neither created nor destroyed, Where attention goes, energy flows and it grows. So once we understand how to work with this powerful energy, literally what we can create is you can create the best version of yourself. And that's the power of this creative force. But unfortunately, over a period of time, just like any energy, it's not really necessarily good or bad. But it's such a powerful force that the religious political environment has taken this energy, and through mass media brainwashing and manipulation, it has spread a message and suppressed this energy, repressed this energy, this most powerful creative force. They've infiltrated the religious teachings and made out these high priestesses who actually existed as high priestesses in the art of sexual alchemy, such as Mary Magdalene, and they've painted her out and twisted the story to be a prostitute who was demon possessed, when in all reality and actuality, she was a high priestess who understood the art and the techniques of the sexual power and creative force and how to heal with it, how to help Yeshua achieve his mission with it, how to strengthen his auric field with it. And so this energy has been misunderstood, repressed, and suppressed, and many times and oftentimes perverted. And it's these forces, because anytime anything is this potent, the power and force of an atomic bomb, well, guess what? If the news is fake, how much of history and the narrative that we are being told is fake? Because it's the same powers that control the educational system. I mean, the history of the Native Americans being told in schools, not true. Go hang out with the Native Americans, hear their own stories. So, the narrative that is being portrayed about this erotic, powerful sexual force is now slowly being liberated, and it's going to be this re-education of sacred sexuality and the truth of the energy about sex, sacred energy exchange, and eros. It's going to be so important for the creation of our highest selves, but also the creation of a new earth. And sacred sexuality and the education of this energy is going to be a huge part. And so that's why I wanted to delve into this really important topic. And you look at what happens in the Catholic Church when this energy is repressed and suppressed. When this energy doesn't have a way to flow, that's where dis-ease happens, perversion happens. So it's really important. Like, so you're suppressing and repressing, and then you're going to take it out on little children in secret. And that's what's happened with a lot of this energy, is it's been put into the closet. Or a lot of good Christian going, Bible thumping, they don't talk about it at church. Why not? That's the church. That's the temple. The body is the temple. And all energy is sacred energy. And this is the most powerful creative force on the planet. And so there are groups that are coming up now who are passionate about this and who are doing amazing education and amazing work. And it still, triggers a lot of people. But one of these groups is called ISTA, International School of the Temple Arts. And no group is perfect, but they're doing amazing work to reestablish the truth and identity and the principles and the choice, the free will choice of this beautiful, amazing, powerful, creative force, Eros. So it's time now for the truth of this energy to be known. And especially for each one of us, most importantly, to establish and have a sex positive spiritual practice. Can you imagine every single day taking this most powerful creative force? And actually, the most important organ for sex is the brain. And Dr. Joe Dispenza is proving this, because when you take that energy and you have a sex positive spiritual practice, shout out Emily Fletcher, who's teaching, how to harness this. The opposite of shame is pleasure, how to harness pleasure, this high frequency from the second chakra, the energy center, and every single day to experience a sex positive spiritual practice. How many of us actually have that? And through the breath and alchemy, through intention of making love with God, whether you're doing it a solo practice or with a partner, connecting breath together, connecting the energy centers, then breathing into the bottom chakras, stirring the Shechem, they call it, stirring the God force, stirring the Holy Spirit in the pelvic floor. And then there's very simple practices you can do through breath and intention. And then you pump that energy up the spine, the throne of God, and this beautiful, amazing, powerful energy flows up the spine. Where attention goes, energy flows and it grows. And you start focusing on your third eye, the pituitary and pineal gland, the crown, right? And as you pump this energy up through, whether it's Kundalini yoga, whether it's your own daily practice, God, making love with God, it's dimensions 1 through 9, the Kundalini energy that lives at the base of the spine, which flows up the spine, the throne of God. And if the chakras are clear and the energy centers are clear, it flows up and it starts tickling the pituitary gland and the pineal gland. And if you continuously do this through certain practices, eventually the third eye, the pineal gland, starts releasing derivatives of melatonin, which produce in the body an effect where you become no one, nothing, nowhere, no time. You literally transcend the ego, and in the brain there starts firing gamma brainwaves. Dr. Joe's team has shown that it's 100 times standard deviations above the normal energy in the brain. Imagine that. A brain orgasm as the energy flows up the spinal cord, right? The cerebral spinal fluid. And by the way, sperm, if you want to call it, is semen, if you want to call it. When you practice semen retention, that energy is actually connected to the cerebral spinal fluid and it's food. And it literally contains, as you know, like proteins and all kinds of amazing things. And this powerful energy, when you don't release it, but you store it and practice semen retention, it literally can become part of the cerebral spinal fluid and flow up the brain when you're doing this daily sex positive spiritual practice, tickling it goes up the ventricles. You learn in medical school, there's this fluid that is surrounding the brain, right? And it literally goes up there, cerebral spinal fluid, and it starts tickling the third eye. And Dr. Joe's team has shown that little small crystalline structures in the third eye starts vibrating and oscillating, and your brain becomes a transducer, an antenna, and the ability then to produce gamma brain waves as the brain is releasing natural benzodiazepines, derivatives of melatonin, which start going into the body, and you start feeling literally this brain orgasm happening. And some people call it the great cosmic orgasm. And in this great powerful energy, you become no one, nothing, nowhere, time. Your consciousness blinks in and blinks out, and it brings back source codes. Not only to mention this crazy 100 standard deviations of a normal energy starts going into your auric field, strengthening your auric field, and you begin the processes of embodying dimensions 1 through 9, Kundalini energy, having mystical experiences, peak experiences, strengthening your auric field, and bringing back source codes as you become one with the universe, nowhere, nothing, nowhere, making love with God, making love with God. And if you develop a daily practice of Tantra, it can literally release unto you the most powerful creative force, which then you can utilize through intentional practices to create the best version of yourself, to create the best relationship with your partner, to create new businesses, to create the new earth. And eventually, I think it's really important that Tantra teaches us that by embracing everything in life and delving into it totally, anything can be turned into a transformative, ecstatic experience. And that's what the end goal of Tantra is. Conscious, eternal ecstasy. Where it's not just in your morning practice where you're experiencing that. Well, like I said in the beginning, all my life's a ceremony. Yes, you have that special morning time at 4:30 a.m. or 5:30 a.m. where the melatonin is the highest, the door to the subconscious mind is the narrowest, the door to the invisible world is the most open, and you can get into states and connections with your higher self and with source in more of an easy kind of way. As all of the world is sleeping, you're coming alive and you're winning the morning so you can win the day. And as you start doing that more and more regularly, and having these experiences more and more regularly, this energy starts becoming your baseline. As you transfer it out into the world, you start realizing all my life's a ceremony. And you literally obtain a state where you are one with everything at all times, attached to nothing. And that's why having a spiritual sex positive practice where you're making love with God every single morning, whatever your method or modality is, breath work, intention, presence, kundalini, Ziva meditation Emily Fletcher has created, the 12-strand DNA course I've created for me. That was like, when I found that shit, yeah, it took my embodiment and my mission and my presence. Ultimately, it comes down to that, is being present with what is. And what is source. And source is in everything, at one with everything, attached to nothing. And that's the power of Tantra. And so I want to do like a little bit of a kind of a review of the history, right? Because according to the CDT plates, where all spiritual wisdom and religions, they're all deriving their information from the original CDT plates. Obviously, this information gets misconstrued. People start taking the spiritual wisdom, but according to the CDT plates, there was a period where the original celestial human, there was no male or female. It was, if you want to call it, just an energetic being made in the image and likeness of God. But after, if you want to call it, the fall from 5D to 3D, and human DNA was, if you want to say, the original intention of natural accretion of the higher self was kind of twisted through a lot of different historical events. There needed a way. There was created a way so that we can embody our higher self, accrete our upper stranded DNA. And that's when actually male and female was created. Correct. I could be wrong, but I believe that's after the third seeding of the original celestial human being. And so male, which has kind of, if you want to call it, a more electric advantage of energy, and female, which has a more magnetic energy. And as you know, electric attracts magnetic, positive attracts negative. There was created male and female. An original intention of Source was to help attract each other so that you could actually share source codes with each other, DNA coding. Every time you have a sexual interaction where it involves fluids with someone else, you're exchanging DNA codes. And it was originally intended for male and female to come together, positive, negative, to share codes, to help each other embody their higher selves, to accrete their upper stranded DNA. And that was the reason why male and female was originally created. So Tantra and male and female is actually here at the highest level of purpose to help each other embody our higher self. And that's why when you have a partner, it's like the ultimate mirror. Everything that can be triggered will be triggered until you accept all of that person for who they are, as they are a representation of all that is, Source, God. And so that was the original intention of male and female, electric and magnetic. And that's the original intention of Tantra, to help each other accrete your higher selves or upper stranded DNA and return to Source as Source wholeness. Yeah, so in ancient Tantra, before like Tantra became Neo-Tantra, or how people perceive it now, the Tantra in its original ancient form was held the belief that actually through Tantra, the goal, one of the goals or one of the intentions was enlightenment was possible in one lifetime without the need for reincarnation. So a lot of souls have been stuck in the cycle of reincarnation. And what it's saying is through Tantra, through sexual alchemy and practices, it is possible to accelerate the ability to embody your higher self, your soul, your fourth, fifth, and sixth stranded DNA. And when you do that, your ability to ascend and not have to come back was actually believed to be possible in one lifetime. And that I want to kind of repeat that. The true essence of Tantra whether it's with yourself, making love with God through your solo practices, or whether it's through a partner, was originally designed to be able to end your cycle of reincarnations by obtaining enlightenment in one lifetime. And that is the true form of the ancient Tantra. And with that, I think a great example, another book that kind of helped me remember along the path, and it probably would trigger a lot of Christians. And I challenge you to open up your mind. Curiosity leads to clarity. So if you're a religious Christian, cool. I used to be one too. But there comes a time if you open up your mind to different perspectives, right? Trust yourself to take what resonates and leave what doesn't. But in the book Magdalene Manuscripts, I don't resonate with all of it now, but at the time it was a really good book. It opened up my ability to see that actually Mary Magdalene was a high priestess. Some people would call her in the art of sexual alchemy. She was an initiate. She was a master. And Yeshua could never have accomplished what he came here to accomplish without the divine spark and partner and mirror. But not only that, the codes that Magdalene shared with him. And in this book, it talks about Yeshua and Magdalene would come together and do these practices of Tantra. And Yeshua would strengthen his auric field through the most powerful creative force on the planet. And through this, and he would also share with her his codes and his secrets. So some people call Magdalene actually the 13th apostle, but the first apostle. She knew more than probably all the rest of them. In fact, there's records of all the rest of them. Read the Gnostic Gospels, being jealous of Magdalene because Yeshua would confide in her. And they would blend chakras and blend codes and DNA and spark each other to embody their higher self, to end their cycle of reincarnations, and also for Yeshua to be able to have the power and the auric field and the energy and the touch of the divine feminine, to be able to have the strength to accomplish what he came here to do. And that's the true essence of Tantra. And it's been twisted. And the story of Magdalene has been taken, and they said that she was a prostitute. Who did that? It's not true. And the truth will set us free. The true essence of the divine feminine must be known. Divine feminine, rise up now. And we are all divine feminine. It's time to sit on your throne now. Been stealing your light far too long now. Pachamama crying out now, divine feminine, rise up. And so, and I won't go too deep into it, but back in Atlantis, there was a group called the Templar Melchizedeks, and we're talking like, back in the day before Atlantis fell, and there was kind of a priest caste that took on the slanted kind of belief and idea of a patriarchal slant, that the need for greed and power. They were power hungry. They started pulling for power, that whoever was the strongest would survive. And they started literally repressing and suppressing the divine feminine. And this has spread into that. That's where the influence came from. And that's where, if you look at the Bible, they call God he. God is a he, Father God. What? What are you talking about? And then also, if you look at the Middle East right now, right? Like literally some women, they're not allowed to dance. They have to wear a cover, and women can't be ordained in certain churches. And this is where it all came from, this patriarchal slant. But true Tantra is seeing God in everything. at one with all, unattached to nothing, God making love with God, sacred energy exchange in every moment, completely present, ecstatic conscious ecstasy right now, right here, just in the present moment, because ingrained into the subconscious is the knowledge and the understanding that I am the divine feminine, I am the divine masculine, I am constantly and continuously weaving this sacred energy exchange, God making love with God in all times. And once that becomes ingrained, it's conscious, eternal ecstasy at all times. That's enlightenment. And so back in the day, these high priestesses, not only would they were the key. They were the keepers of the codes, highly coded beings. And when warriors would go off to war, when they would come back, there were temples where these high priestesses would welcome back the warriors. And, they had trauma. Before they reintegrated into society, the high priestesses would calm their nervous system through Tantra, remove the trauma through Tantra, help them remember who they are through Tantra. And these high priestesses were highly revered. And right now, imagine if our warriors, when they come back from war, that they would be welcomed into a space where their nervous systems would be relaxed, where they'd be brought into the present moment, where their higher self would have a peak experience and they would remember who they are. That's what it originally was. And these high priestesses were actually the ones the matriarchs were the ones who actually were leaders of the tribe, because they were always coming from that place of the divine mother energy of unconditional love. And that is the power of Tantra. So in true essence, the practice of Tantra is leading to freedom. It's all about freedom. And so this is why I say, I always thought that, yes, I'm light, yes, I'm dark. Yes, integrate, consecrate the shadow. But really feel into that. Anything you judge becomes the shadow. And in the cave we fear is the treasure we seek. If it makes you uncomfortable, good. Go deeper into it. Literally dive into it. Until you can alchemize the energy into the awareness and knowingness. And literally, I feel like in my life, I've done a lot of shadow work, but until recently, there was still a part of me that suppressed and repressed what people believe to be the shadow until you delve into it. And that's what I did. I went on a full-on retreat, delve into the shadow of what I perceive to be shadow. And it's different on the other side, I'm telling you. And that's what it's all about: freedom, liberation. That's what Tantra is all about. Until you view everything, I'm talking everything, as divine energy. The energetic infrastructure source is in everything, especially the things we judge, or we've been taught and ingrained and programmed to believe is separate. And to be able to experience this ecstasy in every single moment as we taste the divine energy all the time. So that's what the true Tantra is. And so I want to kind of give a few kind of practical examples, right? Because for me, it's all about connection to the divine, right? And the deeper you connect vertically, the more you can love. The more you love yourself, the more you can love other people. And so that's why I always say having a daily practice where you connect with your soul, your higher self, the source of all energy, the source of all love, the source of all wisdom, is really, for me, a daily practice. Connecting to your soul until you're connected all the time is really key. But some principles that can help with connection is breath. So you don't have to have sex to practice Tantra. Just by holding your hands, your heart is connected to your hands. And placing your hands in front of you, and the person comes over and they touch your hands, and then you start matching your breath, breathing together. And as you start doing that, your chakras start connecting with each other and you start feeling each other's energy. In the beginning, God breathed into man the breath of life, and man became a living being. So breath is the movement of spirit within the body. And so as you start matching each other's breath, it increases the connection, the intuitive connection, the biorhythm starts syncing together. So you can start practicing Tantra even before you do anything with your partner. Take a Friday night, put out the roses, put out the bed sheets, create the lighting, make it into a ritual. And all ritual means is focusing your energy intentionally, right? And you take a whole evening. And some of the couples that I actually really, really, really respect and look up to, they seem to have a practice where one time a month at least, they're taking a day, they're getting an Airbnb, and they're intentionally connecting with each other and creating an environment, whether it's through psychedelics, whether it's through Tantra, whether it's through breath, whatever it is, to spend that intentional time with each other ceremonially in a ritual. And so some of the things that can help you do that is breath, matching and synchronizing, taking 3 slow, deep breaths in together. Also, intention is key. Love, only love for your partner, connection. Love is the cohesive power. It's the connective force. I'm here to connect with my partner. And I think this is really important. This principle is there's no goal. In true Tantra, there's no goal. I'm not here to get something, to ejaculate. There is no goal. So we have to deprogram that idea. It's really just about authentic, present connection. Synchronizing breath can help you sync your intuition and connection and increase your connection. And then also another powerful kind of tool that we can utilize for Tantra is sound. Really speaking. If you speak to your partner as if they're an angel, it invites the frequency of angels. So the sound that you use, the words that you use is literally setting the frequency. And also it's allowing the energy to move. Sound, right? So really being vocal with whatever you're feeling and allowing the sound to move is an important element of Tantra movement. And so whether it's practicing ecstatic dance, matching each other's breath, and doing dance with each other, that's Tantra. And one thing that I am really intending to learn more about and practice more is conscious touch. So healing. And there's different forms of touch. And you can touch someone and it doesn't have to be sexual. They can literally feel your intention. Intention is a magnetic frequency that exists between matter. And so ceremonially, there's ways that you can consciously touch each other. And one of the things that it's important, it heals, it liberates. So those are some kind of techniques. And so true Tantra in its truest form is simply mindfulness, being aware of God that is in everything, slowing down, breathing together, applying, and then carrying those principles that you apply in everyday life. And if you want to, then you can apply that to the bedroom. So eros, like Dr. Gaffney says, is sex is an extension of it. Eros is everything. It's the creative force and is in everything. The bees and the pollen in nature, everything. It's in everything. But sex is simply an extension of that you carry on the same principles of breath, mindfulness, awareness, no goal, complete presence, focus energy in the present moment. And if you want to carry that on into the bedroom, amazing. And I think it's really important. And one of the things that I'm learning, and I learned from ISTA, International School Temple of the Arts, shout out ISTA. I really, really heard a lot of crazy things about ISTA. And I knew that if it triggers, fuck it, I'm diving in. And I went. And honestly, no group is perfect, but I highly, if you're curious, if you want to push your boundaries, expand your frequency range, and delve into what people have called the shadow, but do it in a safe container, I highly recommend it for those souls who are ready for that. And one of the things that I learned there, in the Bible, there's a verse, right? And these church pastors, imagine the church pastors, They're trying to trick Jesus. Jesus is teaching this new message. It's triggering the fuck out of everybody. And so they're trying to trick him because, they don't like what he's teaching, and his new message is taking away from their religious political power because it's setting people free. So they come up to him and they're trying to trick him, and they say, hey, yo, in the Mosaic law, right? When one brother dies, okay, the next brother has to take, the widow as his wife. And they say, well, this happened 7 times. The brother died. The next brother would take her. The next brother would take her. The next brother. And 7 of the brothers eventually took her. And they asked Jesus at the time of the resurrection. And actually, if you interpret that word, it means reincarnation, which is now. The dead in Christ will rise first. It's in the DNA. So I'm having people pop out of the ceremonies like, it's simultaneous time. Let's just say that. And imagine, like, if the soul spirit never dies, don't you think that those people who are alive in the Christ timeline would want to be alive now? Absolutely. So anyway, at the time of the resurrection, they asked Jesus, which is the reincarnation, whose wife will she be? They were trying to trick him. And you know what he says to them? And you can go read it. This is my interpretation, obviously. He pretty much tells them, you idiots, you guys, man, don't you know at the time of the reincarnation, you will be like angels. There will be no giving and marriage and one person owning one person and one person owning, but you will be like the angels. 6 DNA strand angelic mind. There comes a certain consciousness level where you transcend the concept of, if you want to call it, belonging to someone. Nobody owns anybody. This wife doesn't, at the time of the reincarnation, which is now, doesn't belong legally, lawfully to anybody. She will be like an angel. And this is what I am continuously learning to embody, is Tantra is a continuous choice. For there to be love, there has to be a choice. There's no force and source. For there to be love, there has to be a choice. And whether you are married, whether you are whatever, amazing, beautiful, you made it into a ritual, you committed to each other that you're going to spend and commit to each other to love each other continuously, beautiful. Nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with marriage, but I'm also saying that it's a continuous choice for there to be love, which means that nobody's going to belong to anybody. It's a choice. And there's this new consciousness wave that is arising as we start embodying our higher selves, where we start realizing conscious relating, there's a conscious choice. And in order for there to be choice, there has to be, if you want to call it, consent. Right? So there's this model that I learned is called RBDSM, relationship. So really having clear conversations with people through communication. What is this relationship to you? Are you single? Are you in a marriage? Are you monogamous? Are you poly? What are you? And really getting clear, according to that person, what their relationship is, and then getting very clear before any ritual, before any interaction, especially if there's going to be any type of kind of sexual energy exchange. It's very important to have these things acknowledged and spoken about. What are your boundaries? Yeah, please, I prefer it if I don't want anybody to touch this part of my body. Yeah, no, I do not want this, but you can do this, you can't. So getting very clear about your boundaries. And there's very few people on the planet before an interaction who is having this conversation. These are my boundaries. And getting very clear and specific and knowing what your boundaries are. Right? So relationship, clearly defining, yeah, I'm single, and actually in this interaction, I don't necessarily have any boundaries. Yeah, please don't touch this part of my body. I don't feel comfortable with that, right? And getting very clear. And then a D is getting very clear with your desire. And I think this is a very big one, especially for me, and I'm still learning this. What is my desire in this interaction? Okay, this is my podcast. My desire is to help educate people about Tantra, and to help give people information that can help them embody their higher. This is my desire. But it's also very important before you go into an interaction to know what your desires and to be able to express that so that our other person is aware. My desire is to have a very beautiful alchemical sexual encounter, and to raise our kundalini, and to be able to help each other embody and catalyze each other's higher self. Getting clear about that. Actually, my desire is just to have a one night stand. There's no good or bad or right or wrong. But as long as you're shadow, something that is the shadow just means that it's not in the light, it's not in awareness. As soon as you put awareness around it, it's not in the shadow anymore. It's in the light. And so putting light around your desires, your relationship, your boundaries, and then I think correct me if I'm wrong, I could be wrong. I think it just means getting clear about like your sex, right? So it's like, yeah, like I had a test, a 10 panel test last week, and this is what it showed, right? Getting very clear about your kind of sexual status, if you want to call it, right? And that's important for some people. And then I think the last step is really important, like RBDSM. M stands for meaning, right? My meaning, and what is my meaning in this interaction? For certain people, it's just going to be like, my meaning is to explore my sexuality, and nothing further than that. I don't want a boyfriend, girlfriend right now. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm not trying to get married right now. That's not what I'm looking for, right? For some people, that might be their meaning, but it's really important to be very clear and put awareness around what is your meaning in this interaction. So before any interaction, before you set the ritual, before you light the candles, before you, set a date or whatever it is, to have this conversation and to bring awareness into my meaning is, to help myself embody my higher self or whatever it is, so that it's very clear, direct, and the boundaries are set, the desire is known, right? The meaning is known, and the conscious is clear, because both of you have had, tests, the sexual kind of health, if you want to call it sexual health, that's what it stands for. It's clear. So both parties are very clear and have awareness around this. And if you do that, it'll save you so much time, save you so much heartache. You don't have to play the game of trying to like insinuate what your desire is, trying to drop clues about what your meaning is, wondering after the encounter, like, oh my God, is this person clean? Right? So that was a really cool thing that I learned, is to get very clear about RBDSM: relationship, boundaries, desire, sexual health, and meaning, right? Before any encounter. And I think that that's something that we can carry on. And as I look into the new earth and the future, I feel like this is going to be even more important, right? To be very clear about our boundaries, to be very clear about our desires, and understanding that there is no right or wrong really, but to put everything into awareness and light and communication. Yeah. And so, I just also want to talk a little bit about, rituals. I'm not going to speak about this too deeply, but there's certain rituals. Can you imagine right now in humanity, the root chakra, safety, the bottom of, if you want to call it, the first chakra, where our safety lies? And in order for there to be healing, the prerequisite is safety. How much collective energy of unsafety is stored there? I mean, in massages, people don't really massage that area. It's the one area they don't massage. The way that it's being portrayed in media right now, or porn, or whatever it is, it's not necessarily the safest energy. And so that area has been quite often distorted, if you want to call it. But the truth will set us free. And the truth is that area, there is a sacred spot. And when you come to it in a ritual, and you put a bubble of light around yourselves, and you create that safe frequency, and with no other intention but to help that person experience making love with God and the fullness of their ecstatic conscious ecstasy and experience with themselves. And when it's practiced in this manner, the energy that pervades through, it's indescribable. And that's the true energy a high art. In fact, a lot of spiritual teachers reserve this wisdom and don't even speak about this wisdom because it's not able to be described. But when practiced in a ritualistic setting, in a ceremonial setting, in its highest form, sex is sacred. It's indescribable. And the potentiality to heal the trauma, the potentiality to experience a peak experience of eternal conscious ecstasy, to merge with the universe, to feel, transcend time, to transcend the ego, to become no one, nowhere, nothing, no time. And then to release the unsafe energy or the trauma that is in that area through sound, through movement, through breath, through intention. And to facilitate that experience for a soldier, to facilitate that experience for a partner is priceless. And that's the energy in ceremony that I feel is going to be such a huge part of re-education of the masses, of the truth, of the nature of the sacred temple of the body, including the root chakra, especially the root chakra. And so there's a sacred spot and the whole body's sacred, but there's rituals and ceremonies which will help us remember the beauty, the ecstasy, and the oneness of source, which is you, which is me, which is we. And then if you experience once you experience true Tantra, like you can never go back. I'm going to be honest, like, I don't even know how before I could even, it's night and day. Like once you experience true Tantra, you can't go back to like not setting like, I don't even know how to say, I guess you can, but it's just going to be like flesh, 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 flesh. You don't really feel anything. But when you're practicing true connection, no goal, connection of breath, intention of love, no goal, just being there, and you're literally God, making love with God, and you connect, and then maybe you're lucky enough, there's no goal, but you experience that peak cosmic orgasm, that peak experience. It transcends. Gamma brainwaves are released 100 times the standard energy of the normal energy in the brain. I mean, that's skyrocket, and you experience the oneness. You transcend time, you transcend the ego, you become one with everything. Boom, your consciousness blinks out and it comes back. The energy of an atomic bomb is released from the body, and your whole body's tingling. I mean, once you experience that and you know that that's possible, yeah, I guess it's kind of like that saying, once you go, you can't go back. So it's amazing, right? And it's for everybody. Tantra is for everybody, right? And I want to reiterate, the most important sex organ for me is actually the heart and the brain. So at the moment of climax, at the moment of orgasm, right? Especially even if you're not releasing your semen, right? You're practicing semen retention. You hold the perineum, and where energy, you bring it through the breath to the heart, the energy of the heart and the third eye, and you already know what it is you want to create. You want to blink out, blink in, bring back codes from your higher self, or you want to like think about the company you want to create, or you want to think about the new earth you want to create, or whatever it is. At the moment the body releases the energy of an atomic bomb, literally, and you can bring that energy and harness it and bring it up the throne of God, the spine, into your heart and your third eye, and your third eye starts tickling, boom, and you bring that energy through your awareness into your auric field. I mean, it will strengthen your auric field. It will catalyze the creation of whatever it is you're thinking about. And I've spoken about this before, but men, you can have multiple orgasms. You can do this all day if you want. So that's what is, true Tantra can do. And, so yeah, that's what it's really about. And as you start practicing Tantra more and more and more and more and more, you're going to start realizing that also in the present moment, you're going to start having more moments where you transcend ego, you transcend time, and you're just fully alive and fully present. And you realize that's Tantra. Full presence, at one with all, attached to nothing. calm breath, no goal, no agenda. God making love with God. And whoop, something clicks. I guess some people call that enlightenment. And that's the goal of Tantra. To trigger the shit out of yourself, jump into things, to experience the true nature of God. Who am I? And to experience God, making love with God, to trigger the shit out of each other, to dive into the shadow, curiosity leads to clarity, to have different experiences until you really realize and merge all the time with the true presence and the knowingness and the awareness and every single 75 trillion one of your selves that it's just God making love with God, and God is the energetic infrastructure that runs through all things and all people at all times. And if you've never had that peak experience, if you've never felt that unconditional, powerful oneness with God, I invite you to one of our Transcendence Mental Health ceremonies, the Heart Protocol. We have them every month. Check out transcendencementalhealth.com. In a safe, consistent, powerful container, you can experience this love and feel it. Not only experience it, you'll feel it. And you will know, oh my God, God is good and bad. Oh my God, I am one with all. You have that meta experience, and every cell will know. And your frequency range will expand. And you'll start embodying more of your upper stranded DNA. And eventually you continue on this path and you develop that daily practice. You'll end your cycle of reincarnations. You'll embody your soul and you'll literally graduate. And that is the true essence of Tantra. The same way we came down when God said, who am I? And had a desire and split itself into many forms. Now we ascend back up. And that is what Tantra can do. That is why male and female was created. And that was the true intention of Source, to expand the knowledge of the one, to have these experiences, then bring it back, to expand the knowledge of the one, to embody your higher self. And so my challenge to each one of us is to find a sex positive spiritual practice, a daily practice where we're literally making love with God, whether that's meditation, whether that's a Dr. Joe meditation, whether that's my 12-stranded DNA online course, which I'm telling you that course for me changed my destiny. And so, yeah, I'm going to start a community around that, by the way. And so stay tuned for that. But like whatever your practice is, where you're literally spending a sex positive spiritual practice, Kundalini yoga, connecting with your higher self, God making love with God, becoming no one, nothing, nowhere, no time, all of connecting and becoming one with all, everywhere, all of time, and spending and lingering in that moment in conscious eternal ecstasy, bringing back those codes until you're able to walk out every single day and bring true Tantra, embodiment, oneness, alchemy into your everyday life. And I want to end with a story. I was in yoga teacher training in LA near Venice Beach. Shout out Gianna Romer, amazing yoga teacher. And she, at a part of the yoga teacher training, she brought someone to do a tea ceremony. I was a LA boy at the time, and I didn't really understand at the time what I was witnessing. But the lady comes, she's dressed in a particular way, so slow. She's pouring that tea as if she was pouring to God. Fully present, relaxed, slow. Complete intention is focused on the reverence of what she's doing in that act, as if she's doing it to God. Yeah, everybody around watching her, she's pouring the tea. She's aware of people, but all of her energy so consciously is focused on the act of what she's doing, completely present, slow. And there was such a reverence and an energy that was pervading from her that in the middle of a tea ceremony, all she was doing was pouring tea. I started busting out into tears. I was crying, full on just crying. I didn't really even understand why I was crying. I was this LA boy. And as I look back at that, that was an example of true Tantra. Completely present, intention, focused, undistracted, slow. So much reverence you could feel it. Devotion. Pouring that tea as if she was pouring it for God. And something moved inside of me. I don't even know what it was. And you can see even now it moves me. The true devotion to the art of Tantra. God making love of God. God is the energetic infrastructure that runs through all things and all people. So I challenge each one of us to develop that practice, whether it's pouring tea, whether it's pumping Kundalini, whether it's creating a podcast, whether it's making love with your partner, whether it's simply driving your son to school. To do it as if you're doing it to God until it becomes ingrained into every single thing we do. Thanks for tuning in. Love, light, peace, and truth to all sentient beings. Till next episode. Peace.